The coffee hit my face before the insult did, boiling, bitter, splashing down my blouse as the cafe went silent. She leaned close, smiling like she'd won something. "Clean yourself up," she whispered. "The CEO is my husband." People stared. Phones came out. I wiped my eyes, trembling, and smiled softly. Then I took out my phone and dialed his number. "Come meet her," I said. "Your wife." I'd learned a long time ago that humiliation burns hotter than rage. Rage explodes. Humiliation waits. The cafe was inside the glass tower where I'd worked for 7 years. I wasn't dressed like someone important, no designer bag, no sharp suit. Just a beige cardigan, a badge turned backward, and tired eyes. I'd stopped correcting people when they assumed I was invisible. The intern, barely 22, glossy hair, confidence borrowed from lies, stood there like a queen after an execution. She'd done it loudly, theatrically. Coffee thrown. Words sharpened. Ownership claimed. "Security," she said casually, waving her manicured hand at me. This woman harassed me. I could feel it then, the old instinct to shrink. To apologize, to disappear. I bowed my head slightly, as if ashamed, as if broken. But inside something ancient and cold clicked into place. Security arrived unsure. I said nothing. I let the silence do the work. The intern scoffed, rolling her eyes, whispering to her friends about nobodies who don't know their place. I stepped aside, took napkins from the counter, dabbed my face slowly. My hands were steady now. 7 years. I'd survived layoffs, betrayals, stolen credit. I'd watched men with half my competence climb over my back. I'd learned every system, every weakness, every lie the company told itself to sleep at night. And I knew the CEO. Not the way she thought. My phone vibrated. One word is, "on my ways." The intern saw my smile and frowned. "You think calling him will help?" She laughed. "He hates drama." I said nothing. 10 minutes later the air changed. The cafe doors slid open, and conversations died mid-sentence. He walked in without an entourage, without a smile, tall. The man whose signature could end careers with a pen stroke. The intern lit up, rushing toward him. "Baby." He stopped. Not at her. At me. He looked at my soaked blouse. At my burned skin. "What happened?" he asked quietly. She laughed nervously. This woman was rude. I had to put her in her place. Silence stretched. Heavy. Dangerous. I met his gaze for the first time that day. "She said you were her husband." The intern froze. He turned slowly to her. "I'm not married." Her face drained of color. "I'm also not stupid," he continued. "And I don't like liars." She tried to speak. Nothing came out. He looked back at me. "Why didn't you say who you were?" I shrugged gently. "No one asked." That was when it broke. The realization rippled through the room. Whispers ignited like sparks. I wasn't just an employee. I was the architect behind the company's most profitable expansion. The ghostwriter of its biggest victories. The woman who'd fixed disasters without applause. I'd stayed silent because silence gave me leverage. The intern started crying, excuses spilling out. Misunderstandings, stress. He didn't listen. "Security," he said, voice like steel. "Escort her out. Terminate her contract. Effective immediately." She screamed my name, then begged me. Hands shaking, mascara streaking. I stepped close enough that only she could hear me. "Next time," I whispered, "don't confuse borrowed power for your own." She was dragged away, her fantasy collapsing in public. The cafe breathed again. The CEO turned to me. "You could have destroyed her quietly." I smiled, tired but calm. "She wanted an audience." He nodded once. Respect, maybe regret. I left without another word, the sting on my skin already fading. That night my phone rang. A promotion offer. A board seat. An apology wrapped in opportunity. I declined the apology. Some wounds don't need healing, they need remembering. Because the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who learns to wait, and knows exactly when to make the call. The next morning, I walked into the office as if nothing had happened. Coffee in hand, blazer neat, eyes sharper than ever. People glanced, whispered, but I didn't flinch. They'd seen the viral clip of the cafe incident. The moment the intern had humiliated me, everyone had seen it. But now, they were seeing me differently. Not as the timid, overlooked employee, they were seeing someone who had returned unshaken. Emails flooded in overnight. Some apologetic, some cautious, a few congratulatory. I didn't reply. I let them stew. Silence had become my favorite weapon. Words are loud, patience is deafening. I walked past the boardroom, where whispers trailed me like smoke. The intern's name appeared in the HR log for multiple complaints of harassment and lies. She'd overplayed her hand, thinking charm and audacity could bend reality. She hadn't realized reality had witnesses now. By noon, I was called into the CEO's office. He didn't close the door. He didn't need to. I already knew the gravity of his gaze. "You didn't tell me who you were at the cafe," he said calmly. I didn't flinch. He didn't ask. He leaned back, studying me. For the first time in years, I saw the respect that had been buried beneath corporate formalities. The respect that comes when someone survives unnoticed, yet knows exactly how the game works. "You've been invisible too long," he said. "You're too capable to waste in middle management." "I can fix that." I smiled faintly. "I don't need fixing, I need acknowledgement. And balance." He nodded, silently approving. Some battles aren't about victory, they're about power equilibrium. That evening, I returned to the apartment I had rented years ago, a place no one knew I existed. I poured myself a glass of wine, letting the calm seep into my bones. The intern's humiliation replayed in my mind, not because I was satisfied, but because I understood the depth of patience it required. The sweet satisfaction of calculated revenge is not an instant gratification, it's in the slow unraveling of arrogance. A notification pinged on my phone. Her social media accounts were already trending. Posts of the cafe incident, comments from strangers labeling her a liar, a manipulative little opportunist. Her so-called husband had confirmed she was married to no one. I leaned back, eyes closing. Patience was power, and power was mine. Days turned into weeks. The intern attempted to regain control, but the company had already started noticing the cracks in her persona. Meetings went poorly. People began questioning her professionalism. Emails leaked, small but significant errors exposed. The once bold girl was shrinking, scrambling for excuses, while I remained an enigma, silent, watching, untouchable. One evening I received a call from the CEO again. "I need you at the office," he said. His tone was sharp, but not hostile. Urgent, precise. I arrived to find a full board meeting in session. She was there too, trying to act composed, a mask over her panic. He cleared the room with a gesture, leaving us alone. "You've handled yourself perfectly," he said. "But she's still dangerous. She's trying to manipulate her way back. Let her try. Every move she makes now exposes her. She's not playing chess, she's playing checkers." He studied me, then sighed. "I need someone I can trust. Someone who sees the truth behind every lie. And I think that someone is you." I didn't answer immediately. This was bigger than revenge. This was power. I could rebuild, reshape, and silence anyone who underestimated me. But I would do it on my terms, not for recognition, not for gratitude, but for control. The intern tried one final desperate move. She leaked sensitive company information, hoping to implicate me in a scandal. But I had anticipated her. I had already secured evidence of her manipulation, of her false claims, of her ambitions built on deceit. When the CEO confronted her, she had no defense. She crumbled, admitting everything in a shaky voice that had once been so confident. Security escorted her out, and this time it was permanent. No social media vindications. No sympathetic whispers. Her name was quietly removed from internal communications, her presence erased as if she had never existed. The employees who had laughed at her audacity now whispered my name. Respect, tinged with fear, followed me through every hallway. Months later, I stood on the balcony of my new corner office, overlooking the city. The skyline glittered like a crown of lights, and I let myself smile, not for the revenge, not for the humiliation she suffered, but for the transformation. From invisible, underestimated, weak, I had become a force. Silent, patient, unstoppable. The CEO knocked lightly, entering without waiting. "You've changed the company," he said. "And yourself?" I turned slowly, letting the shadows of the office play across my face. "I didn't change it, I just revealed the truth. The world only sees what people let it see." He nodded. There was no pride, no need for words, we both knew the dance. Power is subtle, revenge is meticulous. And the strongest always wait in silence, until the perfect moment to strike. That night, I returned to my apartment, pouring another glass of wine. I looked at the city lights, thinking of the intern who had thought she could humiliate me in public. She had underestimated one thing: my patience, my memory, and my ability to transform suffering into strategy. I smiled, cold and calculated, letting the taste of victory linger. The world had tried to define me as weak. It had failed spectacularly. And now, anyone who ever doubted me would think twice. Because the woman who once stood with coffee spilled across her blouse, shivering and humiliated, was gone. In her place stood someone untouchable, someone who had learned that the sweetest revenge isn't immediate. It's patient, calculated, and devastatingly precise. I poured the last drop of wine, swirling it in the glass. Some wounds heal, others, like mine, sharpen with time. And some people are simply meant to learn the hard way. I smiled once more. The city below glimmered in oblivious beauty, unaware that a quiet storm had risen in its midst, and it would never be ignored again. I turned off the lights. Silence was perfect, and the storm was only beginning. Weeks passed, but I didn't rest. I couldn't. The intern's shadow still lingered, a reminder of how close I had come to humiliation. People forgot quickly, but I never did. Every email, every meeting, every casual glance in the hallway was an opportunity to understand the weaknesses around me. I became invisible again, but this time, invisibility was my weapon. No one suspected how sharp I had become. The intern tried to rebuild her image. She started attending networking events, charming HR representatives, whispering about her unfair termination. I watched her through social media, through office rumors, always quiet, always patient. She believed she had survived. She hadn't. I was waiting. Then came the board retreat, a weekend conference in a remote, glass-walled mansion overlooking a stormy coastline. Everyone arrived in sleek suits, heels, and polished smiles, pretending that corporate politics were nothing more than polite conversations over cocktails. She was there. She hadn't realized I would be attending. I entered the room last, deliberately letting my presence register. Conversations halted. Forks paused mid-air, eyes flicked to me. My blouse was elegant, my blazer sharp, and my gaze unyielding. She tried to smile, it failed. She had underestimated me too many times. The CEO met me at the entrance. His hand lingered on my shoulder. Not a greeting, but acknowledgement, trust. Power. He didn't need to say a word, I already knew the path I would walk tonight. Dinner began. Candles flickered across glass tables, casting dancing shadows on polished faces. The intern attempted to corner me. I didn't mean what I said at the cafe, she whispered, her voice trembling. It was a joke, a misunderstanding. I tilted my head, smiled softly. Was it? Her words caught in her throat. She realized immediately that tone, timing, and silence were now my allies. I had learned the art of subtle dominance. She had nothing. By dessert, I had laid out a plan without speaking to anyone. I observed, calculated, waited. The CEO noticed the subtle cues I left: emails prepped, contracts slightly altered, disclosures ready. By the time dessert plates were cleared, the intern's web of lies was exposed to the entire board. She tried to defend herself, but the evidence was irrefutable. Contracts, emails, timelines, witness statements, all meticulously documented. Every lie, every manipulation, every act of false charm shattered in the room. Tears ran down her cheeks, not from remorse but terror. She realized, too late, that power is not stolen, it's earned through patience, observation, and quiet strategy. The CEO stood. Effective immediately, he said. Voice cutting through the storm outside, all privileges, access, and authority are revoked. You are no longer associated with this company in any capacity. She screamed my name. Pleaded. Collapsed into herself. I stepped closer. You should have remembered, I whispered. Some of us wait. Some of us see. And some of us never forget. Security escorted her out. This time the humiliation was complete, permanent, undeniable. Social media picked up the fallout. And her so-called supporters dissolved into whispers of disbelief. The girl who had thought she could humiliate me publicly had been erased, her reputation in ruins. There was no need. My satisfaction was silent, cold, precise. The following week, the CEO invited me to his office. He handed me a folder, neatly organized. Board approval for a new division, full authority, freedom to execute decisions, hire fire, shape the company as I saw fit. I accepted, not with pride, but with quiet understanding. Power had been given because it had been earned, not by shouting, not by theatrics, but by observation, patience, and precise action. Months turned into years. I became a name people respected in whispers. My division grew beyond expectations. Projects that had once failed under careless oversight flourished under my control. Every person who had underestimated me learned that appearances are deceiving. The intern's story faded from memory, but the lessons remained. Those who crossed me understood, silently, that crossing me was dangerous. Not immediate, not reckless, but inevitable. I had become the storm everyone feared, not visible at first, not noisy, but unstoppable. One evening as I prepared to leave the office, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. A voice trembled. I need help. I made mistakes. I smiled faintly. You should have thought of that sooner. Silence. You'll have to figure it out yourself, I said softly, ending the call. Power is not charity. Weakness is not forgiveness. Every action has consequences, and patience ensures that those consequences are devastatingly exact. Walking to the elevator, I noticed reflections in the glass, the skyline, lights flickering like stars, and behind them, the shadow of the woman I had once been, humiliated, small, invisible. She was gone. In her place stood someone untouchable, patient, calculated, deadly in her quiet control. That night, I poured a glass of wine, letting the silence fill the apartment. My reflection in the glass stared back, calm, collected, unyielding. The city outside sparkled, unaware that a quiet, precise storm had risen among it. Years later, I would encounter people who tried to challenge me. None succeeded. The intern had been a lesson, but the world was full of those who believed they could humiliate, deceive, or belittle. Each one met the same fate: careful observation, slow unraveling, absolute silence until the moment the plan was executed perfectly. I realized something essential: revenge is not an act. It is a lifestyle. A slow, controlled process. A game played over years with patience as the key and silence as the shield. I never forgot the café, the coffee, the words she had spoken. They were burned into memory. But they were not a weakness, they were fuel. And I had learned to transform fuel into fire, subtle yet unstoppable. Now, sitting in the quiet apartment, looking at the city lights, I could smile. The storm had passed, but the calm it left behind was even more powerful. I had become the person no one could ignore, the force that waited, watched, and acted when the moment was perfect. And the intern. She had vanished from memory and from relevance. Her arrogance had been her undoing. But I remained, silent, calculated, the master of consequences. The city would never see me coming again. Because I had learned that true power is invisible until it strikes, and when it does, it leaves nothing standing. The glass of wine rested in my hand, a final toast to patience, strategy, and the quiet storm that had become me. I leaned back, eyes closed, letting the weight of triumph and the calm of vengeance settle in. Some people live for applause. Some people live for recognition. I lived for the quiet certainty that no one could ever underestimate me again. And that certainty was intoxicating. The storm had passed, but the legacy of its wrath would never fade. I was no longer the woman who had been humiliated by coffee in a café. I was the woman who had rewritten the rules entirely. And anyone who crossed me after that would learn, silently, patiently, painfully, what it meant to face a force that could not be stopped. Weeks became months. The office, once a place of quiet observation, now became my kingdom of calculated influence. Every move I made was deliberate, every word, every glance. Every pause designed to show strength without boasting it. The interns, the executives, the whispers in the hallways, they all began to see the invisible threads I controlled. The intern had disappeared from the company entirely, her presence erased like chalk wiped from a blackboard. But she remained in my mind, not as a threat, but as a reminder of the power of patience. Power doesn't announce itself, it waits, it observes, it strikes when the timing is perfect. And the timing had always been mine. One rainy evening, the CEO called me to his office. The storm outside rattled the glass windows, thunder shaking the city as though nature itself was punctuating the gravity of the moment. He didn't greet me. He simply gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "You've done more than I ever imagined," he said, voice calm, almost reverent. "You've turned silence into action, invisibility into control. And in the process you've changed the way this company functions. Permanently." I nodded, my hands resting lightly on the chair's arms. Power isn't loud. It's patient. And it belongs to those who endure until the moment is right. He leaned back, a rare smile appearing. "You've taught me something important. Something I should have known a long time ago. That the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, often hold the most force." I allowed myself a small smile. But inside, the satisfaction was not in praise, it was in knowing the storm had been mine all along. The next day, the company held a gala for its annual performance awards. The room glittered with chandeliers, and every seat was filled with executives, employees, and stakeholders. The intern's name was conspicuously absent. The whispers had shifted, now they spoke of me. Admiration, fear, respect, all rolled into one. I walked in, poised, radiant, and utterly untouchable. The room seemed to recognize it. Conversations faltered, heads turned, some smiled nervously, others stared openly. Realizing for the first time that I was no longer just an employee, they were in the presence of someone who had mastered patience, revenge, and power simultaneously. A man approached me, a senior board member, and whispered, "You've changed everything." I smiled softly. "I only revealed what was always here." The night progressed. Champagne glasses clinked, awards were given, and the intern remained absent from memory. She was irrelevant. Her attempts at manipulation, her lies, her arrogance, all had been erased, quietly, perfectly. Then came the moment that would seal everything. The CEO stood to speak, a rare occurrence at a gala, and the room fell silent. "This year," he began, voice steady, "we recognize someone whose contribution cannot be measured by numbers alone. Someone who has demonstrated patience, insight, and an extraordinary understanding of human nature. Someone whose calm strength has reshaped this company entirely." My heart remained steady, my face neutral. But inside, a quiet warmth rose, the acknowledgement of years of subtle, calculated action, and the power I had built in silence. He continued, "It is an honor to officially recognize her as the head of a new division. One that will drive innovation, strategy, and leadership across the company. Please join me in congratulating." He paused, letting the anticipation hang in the air. Her. Applause erupted. Not loud, not chaotic, but precise, respectful, undeniable. I stood, walking forward, my posture impeccable, my gaze steady. Each step resonated with the silent victories I had accumulated over years. This was not the triumph of anger. It was the triumph of strategy, endurance, and undeniable intelligence. The intern's shadow was gone entirely. I didn't need to watch her fall publicly anymore. Her absence was the ultimate punishment. The public humiliation, the failed schemes, the loss of influence, they all existed. Invisible but indelible. After the applause faded, I stepped onto the balcony of the gala venue. Rain-slicked glass reflected city lights like scattered diamonds. I inhaled deeply, feeling the storm outside mirror the storm I had once carried inside. The chaos, the humiliation, the doubt, all transformed now into clarity, power, and control. I let the rain hit my face, cool and cleansing. It was as if the world itself acknowledged my transformation. I had been the girl with coffee spilled on her blouse, trembling and humiliated. I had become something else entirely, someone untouchable, unstoppable, and unbreakable. A phone buzzed in my purse, a message from the CEO, succinct, almost private. "You have done what no one else could. Be proud." I didn't respond immediately. I gazed at the city lights stretching infinitely below. The night was quiet, alive with possibility. And in that quiet, I realized the revenge had not just been against the intern. It had been against every assumption the world had made about me. Every person who had underestimated, dismissed, or mocked me. The power I now held was mine because I had claimed it with patience, strategy, and unwavering focus. I finally looked at the message again, smiled. Typed 3 simple words, "I already am." The storm passed. The city continued unaware of the quiet force it had overlooked. But I did not forget. I never would. Some people live their lives chasing applause, attention, or validation. Some people thrive on chaos. I had learned the true art of strength: wait, observe, endure, and when the moment is perfect, act, and act decisively. In the end, it was beautiful. Not because of the destruction I had wrought, but because of the calm precision with which it had been executed. The intern's arrogance had been her undoing. My patience had been mine. The world had underestimated me, and it would never make that mistake again. I poured a final glass of wine, the amber liquid catching the light of the city below. The reflection showed a woman transformed. Silent, strategic, unbroken. Every scar, every humiliation, every moment of weakness had become fuel. I lifted the glass in a quiet toast to the storm I had survived, to the patience that had been my ally, and to the undeniable force I had become. The wind whispered through the balcony, carrying the rain's song. I smiled. The past had taught me that suffering is temporary, but strategy is eternal. Revenge is not a fleeting moment, it is a quiet, relentless evolution. I took a sip, savoring the calm, knowing the city below would never forget my name, even if it never realized the storm had come and gone. I turned, stepping back into the warmth of the gala, into the applause and recognition. The woman who had been humiliated was gone. In her place stood someone unforgettable, someone unstoppable. And for the first time in years, I was completely free.